Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week it's time to finish buttoning up those last little bits and pieces leading up to starting the engine. Yeah! Alright, and before I get into it today, I'd just like to say a big thanks to Supercheap. They were watching a couple of weeks ago and they saw how my compressor died, and they actually sent me a new compressor replacement, so thank you very much, Supercheap. And at the same time, they also noticed me struggling with that transmission in the car when I was trying to get the dowel in, and they actually hooked me up with this transmission jack. And I just wanted to mention, if you guys don't actually know, Supercheap will sell a lot of these things that they don't have in store. They actually have online, and you can just go online and search on there, and you can buy it on there, and they'll send it out to you. They can deliver it to your home address. So check that out. But this is going to come in very handy with lots of the jobs leading up. A good transmission jack is going to be good, and I definitely need another compressor. So getting into it, I have actually been waiting. A lot of this time messing around waiting to start the engine is the fact that I sent away the key barrel and all the locks to get key to like to the local locksmith a month ago. They said it would be a week, and it's been over a month. So that's the issue. That's half the reason why I try and do everything myself, is that I'm not waiting for other people, and it's all on me. Much easier that way. But in any case, I've got the key barrel back now. So now it's time to fit this into the car and do the final bits of wiring so I can connect up the electric fuel pump and actually get everything wired up so I can start the car. So one of the most important things you need to run an engine is you need fuel going to that engine. And to get the fuel to this engine, I need to actually connect up my electric fuel pump. And at the moment, I've got it sort of wired in the back, but there's nothing actually connected. I've got a bit of a diagram I've scribbled down here, and I got most of this information from another YouTube channel, Cars, Bikes and Coffee. He has got a great step-by-step of setting up an electric fuel pump to his 240Z. So if any of you want to do that, go and have a look at his channel. It's a really, really good video. I'm going to try and do the same thing that he did and connect all of this up. So I've got to put a relay in, and I showed you a couple of weeks ago, I added an extra oil pressure sensor switch, so that basically if the car has an accident, the engine shuts off, it shuts the fuel pump off. It's a safety fail-safe. I've got to add a relay into that. So I've got to connect up my relay, connect it through to some power on the starter. There's a bit of wiring and stuffing around to do here, but it's reasonably straightforward following some instructions. So let's try doing some wiring. Yay. All right, I just went through and just allocated coloured wires to the different points I need to connect up, and I've got my relay here. I bought a bunch of these relays. They're just cheap on eBay, and they've got these nice little mounts. The mounts all stack together, so I'll probably go through and replace all the relays that are messy in that car at a later stage with these. They all clip together. They all will mount nicely together, so it'll be a nice, neat-looking unit as opposed to the dog's breakfast that's in there at the moment. So now I'm going to go through. I'm going to pull out. There's the central pin in this that I don't need, so I'll get rid of this wire completely. Connect up all my wires, bit of heat shrink, and sort of get the connections I can do on the bench done now, and then we'll move back into the engine bay and finish it all up in there. All right, I was looking at ways to try and sort of mount those relays, and this is going to be temporary, but it's still going to be a lot better. It's just this ugly panel that they had in holding the old relays. It's just ugly and horrible, so I'm going to make it slightly better and see if I can sort of bend something up and paint it and make it look a little bit better than this ugly lump of junk that they've got at the moment. All right, so this still looks like a total mess down here, but it is organised chaos. This panel looks much neater with the relays attached to it there, and all the wires are all connected up to my oil pressure sensor switch that I've tapped in here. And these last two wires, this green and blue wire, these ones have to go into the cab, so I'll feed them through the firewall. One is for the ignition and the other one is for the fuel pump. And then hopefully the fuel pump will be all wired up. So I moved back now under the dash, and if you remember back to when I installed the fuel pump in the back of the car, I told you that the factory actually installed factory wiring for an electric fuel pump, even though they didn't actually use them on these cars, which is really odd. And even on all the cars I've seen, and this is exactly the same, this fitting right here that's taped up with this blue tape, that was actually done by the factory, and that is the connection for the fuel pump that is just sitting there under the car, even in this wiring loom that has been butchered and hacked together by a million people over the years. So I just need to pull this off and connect my yellow wire that I've pulled through from the firewall, and this will connect straight to the fuel pump. I do need to get a fuse to put in there, but for this time being I'm just going to do it without a fuse and see if I can actually get this fuel pump turning over. Well, that is a cool little bonus. I went down to Supercheap and got one of these basic, like, generic connector kits, and they've got a few different styles, but I actually tried this generic connector, and it is the exact same as the original factory one, so that is awesome. It actually will fit on there perfectly. So that is a good tip for any of you Aussies with Datsuns. You can just go down to Supercheap and get the fittings off the shelf. How good is that? So now I'm going to connect these up. Unfortunately, both of these wires are straight green, no trace color. It's just green. So I'm going to have to just work out which one's which to get the polarity right of the fuel pump, because I don't want the fuel pump working backwards. So I will connect this up now, and hopefully we'll actually have a working fuel pump. Okay, so now is the time we see whether everything I have done so far has actually worked, and if anything is actually connected like it should be. I'm now going to connect up the positive side of the battery. The negative side is already connected up to the car and the starter and everything. I'm going to connect it up now, and then I need to turn the ignition on and see if anything happens, and if I've got power anywhere, and I'll get my power tester out and I'll go around and check everything and see if we actually have power going through the car, or whether I've completely balls the whole thing up. Okay, I have the key. Let's see if anything at all happens. Oh. Okay, something is hooked up wrongly because the first and only thing I see is that the amp meter goes into the negative. So obviously something, whoa, 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 whoa. We have smoke. Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, what was cooking? Told you wiring wasn't my forte. Something was cooking. Okay, something in this main fuse line here. Oh, look at that. That wire melted the whole way through. Great. That's why fuses are good. And randomly connecting stuff is not. Oh, that could have just created a whole bunch of headaches. Look at that. Is that going to focus on that? You can see it's melted all the way through there on that. Great. I did say that I hated wiring, but unfortunately it's sort of setback I really didn't want to have to deal with, but only way is to move forward, so that means getting out my power scanner, and I'm going to go through and try and see if I can work out what circuit is what, starting with checking that cooked wire and see if I can trace it into the engine bay and trace it and find out what wire it actually is and what's not working. At least that much I can try and gather something from. The main thing that stands out to me is that something with power is directly earthed to the body where it shouldn't be. So obviously I've got my wiring all screwed up somewhere, so it's time to track that down. It's spliced into the green wires that are going to where the fuel pump goes. So I think what I have here is I have ground out that I ground out one of the wires to the fuel pump, and obviously that is not what I should have done, and I've traced my issue. So it's actually come from this ground. I just ground it up to here for the fuel pump. So hopefully if I can work out what this wire's for, I can rerun a wire for this without having to redo the entire loom. I'll trace it back and get rid of the burnt out section. Hopefully it doesn't go too far, and yeah, it won't be the world's largest issue, and we'll move forward. Okay, crisis averted. Using my wiring diagram, I managed to work out that black and white wire travels all the way around to the ignition, and it's actually cooked here in the, this is the plug that goes into the back of the ignition, and you can see it's actually cooked here as well. I've got to go through now, and I'm going to disconnect this, and I'm not going to strip it out of the loom. I'm just checking the wires. I followed it a fair way back, and I'll follow it up a little bit to make sure it hasn't cooked any other wires, but I don't think so. I'm going to just disconnect it and run a completely new wire to follow that circuit. So hopefully I can actually get it all going again. I know what the issue is. I know where the ground is. So basically what was happened is, so that was power going straight from the ignition straight to ground. So no wonder it cooked. So that's crisis averted. Let's run a new cable, and we should be good. Alright, so that has all been tidied up. Now, I didn't actually understand what the why there were two wires up here before, and that's where I made my mistake. Basically, the wires, the original wires that go through to the fuel pump, there's a dual plug there, so obviously there's two green wires, and the reason why they are both green is because they both actually, I think it's just a loop going to the fuel pump. So I think probably the intention was that if they were going to add a fuel pump in, that they would plug in basically a fuse in that line. And like you saw, one of those lines was already connected to ignition. So there was already power on one side. So now I've rearranged those plugs and got them so that hopefully now I should have continuity through to the fuel pump. But I'm going to check that with, I'm going to get this up on the hoist and just check that with my power scanner before I do anything else and assume anything, because we all know what assuming does. So I've set up here for my continuity stand. I've just got this piece of wire I've plugged into the plug here onto the line that I think is going to the fuel pump, and I've run that out the car all the way down. I have clipped it onto the end of my power scanner, so this is now one circuit there, and now I just need to see if I've got a complete circuit. I've unplugged the fuel pump, and that means we have a circuit. Which means this is the correct wire for the fuel pump, so that means at least that part of it is now connected properly. I am glutton for punishment, but I really want to see if I can if I've done things right. I'm going to try again. This might be a bad idea, but we'll see how we go. Okay, positive is connected. I'm going to go around now and just feel all the wires, make sure nothing is feeling hot to start with, that I haven't actually got anything nasty cooking just with that connected. No smoke so far. Everything feeling okay so far. On. Nothing at all. The amp meter's not doing anything this time. But that fuel pump is not on either. At least there's no smoke. Time for some diagnosis and see what's got power where. I'm pretty sure I have it all connected correctly, except for maybe some of these switches may be around on the wrong terminals. I did look, and this has got an I on this side, and the bottom one I think has an S, but I can't really see it because it's all screwed in and thread locked, and I didn't really want to pull it out. A little bit more research to go on, but I'm pretty sure I've wired everything correctly. And the other thing is that there is currently no oil in this engine, so I don't want it to turn over. Maybe because there's no oil pressure, the switch is not working. Well, that was a long day of wiring and diagnosing problems. I'm still not confident with what I've done, but we'll keep trudging ahead. I'm going to keep testing and seeing what I've done with some of these things. But that said, I might have a bit of a tinker over the weekend off camera and just see if I can sort anything else out, and I'll let you guys know of the results of that. But it's definitely all the time I have today, so that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, an interesting cheat has been said to be used by some dirt track racers. The old saying, there is no replacement for displacement, is very true, but it's difficult to get around if the engine size is controlled by the rules. After a race, a competitor could be asked to pull a spark plug and submit to a displacement test. This is where a graduated cylinder and plunger are connected to the cylinder and the motor is turned over without spark. The volume of air is then measured and the displacement can be calculated. The ingenious way around this was that the mechanic could drop 2 or 3 cigarette butts into the cylinder before attaching the tester. These would be enough to displace a few cc's and give the impression of a smaller engine. And because the cigarette butts were soft and fibrous, they would then burn away the next time the engine was running, and it was almost as though they were never there.
All right, well, yeah, that could have been worse today. The car almost caught on fire, but thankfully crisis was averted. I think I've sorted that out, and yeah, it's not too big of an issue.
I guess we'll wait and see what the next crisis is.
I think there's some more tinkering, a bit more research I need to do, and yeah, I'll keep working away. The electrical part of this is the worst part for me, and it's probably the most boring part for you guys, besides maybe sanding.
Oh no, sanding. Couldn't possibly be boring. Well, who knows? I mean, you never know what Jeff's about to do next, so...
I never know what I'm going to do next. I'm so disorganized.
Fire, who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, we hope you guys are enjoying the show, and we have a Patreon page if you would like to help us out, and you'll get to see the video a day earlier.
You can also follow us Facebook, Instagram, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we'll see you next time.
Bye guys.
See you guys.
It's just words to me. It makes absolutely no sense. Plunger are connected to the motor and the cylinder. This is where a graduated cylinder and plunger.
Yes.
Done. Woohoo! Yeah.